My son shoved me onto the floor at my own Christmas table and pointed at the head chair. "That seat is for my father-in-law, get out." Forks stopped. My granddaughter whispered, "Grandpa." I didn't shout. I buttoned my jacket, tasted tile and lamb, and checked the mirror clock in the hallway. 9:12 p.m. By 10:15 a.m., the first bank would call him, then the tow yard, then HR. Tonight, he took my chair. Tomorrow, I would take back everything I lent him quietly on paper. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. The tile had a hairline crack I had noticed other winters. It pressed a cold line through my shoulder blade as if the house itself underlined the moment. I stood in the hush that comes after a glass breaks, even when no glass has broken. Sloane rested her hand on the back of her father's coat and did not lift her eyes. Raymond Cole hovered by the doorway with a smile that did not know where to land. Ethan did not move. His jaw was set like a locked cabinet. Noah was already taller than me. He did not know what to do with his hands. One hovered near my elbow, the way boys hover near the idea of helping without permission. Lily clung to the edge of the tablecloth and looked at the candles. Wax leaned toward the heat and did not drip. I smoothed my sleeve and felt a bead of gravy at the cuff. It smelled like thyme and a little like the brand new oven. Up, Ethan said, not loud. A courtroom word. "No, sir. No, Dad. Just up." "I heard you," I said. My voice did not need volume. Is respect rented by the hour now? He did not answer. He flicked a glance to the head chair. My chair, the one that carried the scratch from when Noah was 4, and banged a toy truck into it and apologized by drawing me a crooked star. Ethan extended his palm to the air as if offering a valet ticket for a seat he did not own. "Raymond is our guest of honor," Sloane said. Her smile tried to position itself between apology and promotion. It chose promotion. I followed the line of Ethan's hand to the chair and then to the bottle I brought. Burgundy, the one I promised myself I would open for a birth or a return, the tag still on the neck, the stubbed handwriting that said $2.80 with tax. Sloane had placed it near the centerpiece. She had not opened it. The corkscrew lay beside it, unsure of its job. "Guest of honor," I repeated. The words did not feel at home in my mouth. I had said guest many times in my life. Honor I saved for funerals and people who did the right thing when no one watched. Raymond cleared his throat polite, aged a little winded from the step up into the dining room. "We do not need to make a thing of it," he offered to the air. His voice had the smoothness of a man who survived rooms by oiling them. Ethan stepped closer to me, not touching. He was careful with touch when it did not serve him. He tilted his chin toward the chair. "Please," he said. It had the knot of a please that is already a command. Noah's chair scraped an inch. He pushed it back with the heel of his shoe and looked at me like a boy who needed a rule. Lily rolled the edge of a napkin until it became a tight white stem. I did the only thing a man does when someone else decides that what is his is decorative. I moved. I stood. The floor let me go slow. I kept my right hand on the table for show, not for balance. I did not brush the dust from my pants. There was none. Sloane's new robot vacuum probably ate dust for sport. Ethan waited for me to step away. He did not hold the chair for me. He held it for Raymond, both hands on the back like an usher at a gala. "Mr. Cole," he said. The Mr. had weight. It had the weight of everything he thought he needed from another man. "Thank you," Raymond said, and lowered himself into the place where I have led prayers and bills and hard conversations since the year we lost the first hail to winter. He looked at the plate. He looked at my knife. He adjusted nothing. He belonged to any table that let him sit. I took the side chair, the one that does not pull eyes, the one near the door where drafts collect. My coat hung on the banister. My phone lay face down on the buffet screen, black to the room, but when I lifted the edge with 2 fingers, the numbers found me. 9:12 p.m. 1 more minute than a threat, and 1 less minute than a promise. "Shall we?" Sloane said. She lifted the decanter and poured for Raymond first, then Ethan, then herself. She handed the water pitcher to Noah for me. He poured as if pouring steadiness back into the evening. Grandpa Lily whispered again. She tried to make the word both a question and a blessing. It landed between my knife and the shadow of my hand. Ethan cut the lamb and set a perfect slice on Raymond's plate. "Cooked just how you like it," he said. His voice was bright. It bent itself toward use. "I did not know you remembered that," Raymond said. He smiled the way men smile when their daughters have married a strategy. Sloane kept her eyes on the table whenever they tried to climb toward mine. She asked Lily about choir. She did not ask me about my coat, even though it was December and I had left it on the banister in a house that ran warm for other people. I looked at the head chair from the side. It did not look different. It did not look powerful. It looked like wood. It looked like decisions and late coffee and a pencil mark under the place where I once measured Ethan's height, because he could not wait for the bathroom door, and I had a pencil in my pocket. Dad Ethan said a word that sounded like a word you use when you want to file someone into a small drawer. Let's keep this smooth. I wanted to tell him that smooth is what you use when you cannot bear the truth of texture. I did not. I chewed lamb and thought about the bottle on the table that would not be opened, and the cheap cork in my kitchen that I would open when I got home, because cork was cork, and wine was wine, and the point of anything good is not to wait for someone else's permission. The kids tried small talk. Noah said something about physics, and Lily said something about the music teacher. Sloane said the word internship as if it were a Christmas ornament and said it gently into the air where it could catch light. Ethan laughed at something Raymond said about markets as if laughter could pay interest. I felt the room the way a contractor feels a wall. You tap and hear where the studs are and where the space is empty. The studs here were names and roles and a head chair. The empty space was a son who thought a guest of honor outranks a father. Raymond lifted his glass toward me, a polite salute from across a small ocean. To family, he said. I matched the lift with water. To memory, I said. He took it as agreement. I let him. Ethan looked down the table as if seeing the distance for the first time. He had a gift for distances when they were measured in units he controlled. People are not units you control. It is a lesson most men learn earlier than this. Sloane set her hand on Ethan's wrist to anchor him to the table. He did not look at her hand. He did not look at me. He looked at the chair that had become his new god. It is a simple truth that some chairs are only chairs until you sit the wrong man in them. Then they become mirrors. Ethan could not look away. No one asked me for grace. No one asked me for a speech. No one asked why the bottle sat unopened. They ate. They spoke markets and galleries and plans. The candles guttered a little, then straightened small soldiers at attention, good wax doing its job. When my plate was clean enough for a man who had no appetite for anything here, I folded my napkin once and set it by the knife. Ethan saw the fold and the placement. He knew exactly what it meant because I taught him small signals long before I taught him signatures. I am going to stretch my back, I said. I did not have to stand to announce it. The sentence stood for me. Save me some dessert, the kind that keeps. Noah nodded too fast. Lily's eyes darted to my hand as if she could keep the shape of it in her pocket. Sloane reached for the decanter again and kept reaching after it was already in her hand. Dad Ethan said. He did not finish the sentence. The rest of it lived in the space between the two of us. Enjoy your guest of honor, I said. The words were stones set softly in snow. They did not sink. They held their shape. I lifted the bottle by its neck as I passed. Not to take it. To read the label one more time. To remember why I bought it and for whom. Forks scraped the plates in a reluctant chorus as I stepped away from the table. The hallway had that mild winter draft houses get when people come and go and forget to close a door all the way. My phone stayed face down on the buffet. The numbers would be there when I needed them. I walked to the bathroom without hurry. The light switch clicked with the same sound as a deadbolt. The mirror did not argue. The lock turned under my thumb. The click was small and final, the kind that tells a room it has lost permission. The mirror threw me back a man who still knew where the studs were. I touched the glass with 2 fingers, counted a breath to 4, let it out to 6. Did it again until the pulse in my throat stopped acting like it was late for a flight. The light was cruel and honest. Good. I wanted honest. I unbuttoned my sleeve and wiped the gravy bead from the cuff with a square of toilet paper, folded it twice, dropped it in the trash. Then I took out my phone and dialed Blair Ang. She answers on the second ring when I use this number. Old habit. Old trust. Blair, it's Walter. A pause heavy with holidays. Walter, tell me you're calling to wish me I need revocations prepared tonight. Every authority my son has, corporate banking vendor pull it. Draft board consents. Shareholder consents. Everything we need to make it stick at 8 a.m. Her voice shed the tinsel. You're the controlling shareholder. The bylaws give you executive authority between meetings as chair. We can do this by unanimous written consent of 1. Exactly. Do you still hold the only voting equity? All of it, I said. He's CEO by appointment. No shares. Not a penny. Blair breathed once. If we pull guarantor status, the banks will call him first, then start the clock. She went into list mode, the one I pay for. Okay. Corporate resolutions to revoke all powers of attorney granted to Ethan Hale, remove him as signatory on operating and payroll accounts, suspend card privileges, restrict ACH, rescind standing instructions at First Federal and Granite, notify lenders of guarantee withdrawal per Section 3.4 CE. We'll also prepare a termination for cause packet should you need it. Do you have cause misuse of company resources? Conflicts undisclosed. But that's tomorrow. Tonight I want the drawbridge up. Understood. I'll email drafts within the hour. Sign digitally or I can send a runner. Send a runner. And Blair, include a model notice to landlords and mortgage holders for guarantee withdrawal on personal obligations. The Lakeshore place was documented as a callable family loan. We're calling it copy. Anything else? Leave a line item for reclamation of corporate property in his possession. I want my lawyerly language in black and white. She exhaled a small laugh without humor. You always did love a paper trail. Paper is the only friend that shows up to court. We hung up. I looked up at the ceiling. The fan ticked once, then gave me steady hum. I pressed the faucet for cold water and let my hands sit in it until the heat left my palms. When I dried them, they were steady. Good enough. Next, Linda Carr, CFO, double entry for blood. She picked up with the clink of a glass somewhere behind her. Mr. Hale. Linda, freeze all joint access related to Ethan first thing. Remove him as signatory and card holder. Flag his expense account for audit hold reimbursements. I'm initiating guarantee withdrawals across the board. I want ACH filters ready. She didn't ask why. She knew better. I'll log into the bank portals and set pre-authorizations for your signatures. For clarity, the guarantee schedules I sent you in September mortgage BMW lease. Corporate line at Granite vendor term with Monarch are still accurate. Read them. Mortgage at Lakeshore, $608, $400 outstanding. Guarantor W. Hale. BMW 7 Series residual $47 or $900. Guarantor W. Hale. Granite LOC $500K revolving current draw $220K. Guarantors none secured by receivables, but Ethan's card privileges tie to it. Monarch fixtures, 90-day terms $38K open. He's also got 2 corporate cards personal spend last month at $18,200. Cut the cards. Tonight you can soft lock. At 9 a.m. hard stops. Payroll segregate by role. Remove him from auto stipends. Copy. Are we notifying HR? Not yet. I'll handle Robert. One more thing, pull last 5 months of his transactions and dump to a folder named Ethan Review. Already did. And Walter, you're sure I'm late? Not unsure. We hung up. I flushed the toilet to mask a laugh I didn't need to explain, washed my hands again just to mark the moment, then pulled up the email that lives in a folder called Bylaws. The PDF sat where I left it years ago, Hale Construction, Inc. Bylaws amended and restated. Tab sections stared back at me, 3.1 officers, 4.2 chair powers, 6.5 action without meeting. Section 4.2 gave me exactly what Blair had quoted. Between board meetings, the chair may act in the ordinary course to protect corporate assets and withdraw delegated authority for good cause subject to ratification. We had drafted that after a scare 15 years back when a vice president thought company cards were souvenir machines. People forget the gifts you give them in peacetime. Paper does not. There's a difference between a CEO and an owner. We both knew it. One of us had mistaken the suit for the deed. I scrolled to Exhibit C, Powers of Attorney. The template read like a polite loaded gun. I had granted Ethan limited POA for vendor negotiations under $50K and for signature on certain banking forms. I could pull it with a single signature and notice. The form to revoke was already there. Blair would tidy the edges. I opened notes and wrote 3 lines, 9:31 p.m. Blair drafting revocations and consents. 9:36 p.m. Linda prepping ACH filters, signatory removal card locks. 9:38 p.m. Cross-check guarantee schedule at desk. Call Robert. I called Robert last. He answers with his full name like he's at roll call. Fisk. Robert, sorry for the hour. I need you at the office at 7. Remove Ethan's personal items from the corner office. Box them. Put the boxes in storage. Leave his plant on the sill. Draft a neutral sign for the door office reassigned. Have HR pull his access at 9. You'll sit in the chair until we decide otherwise. He didn't clear his throat or ask a single why. He has carried drywall up flights in January with me. Okay, boss, do you want the termination letter ready? Prepare it. Title termination for cause loss of confidence. Misuse of corporate resources. We'll decide when to hand it. For now, I want shock absorption. He was quiet for a second, hearing the shape of the morning. You got it. Anything from me before then? Send a photo when the desk is cleared. Put a note in the center. I'll text you the words. I hung up, then texted, "This is not your seat." I let the phone sit on the sink while the fan turned the small room into steady machinery. Through the door I heard a knife set down the soft attempt at a laugh, the tiny indignities that pretend to be normal. My hands didn't shake. A knock. Lily's voice small. "Grandpa, are you okay?" "I'm fine, sweetheart. Drink your water." "Okay." When her steps faded, I opened a different folder in my head, the one labeled Lakeshore. The day we closed on that apartment, I wrote the check and took the photo of Ethan and Sloan smiling on the balcony. Sloan posted it. I filed the paperwork that called the gift a loan payable on demand. You never planned to call it. You planned to be able to. On my phone, a new email popped in from Blair, subject revocations, drafts, and board consent. In the body bullet points I could recite in my sleep. Attached POA revocation, E. Hale. Banking signatory removal, E. Hale. Board consent to revoke delegated authority. Shareholder consent to ratify actions. Notice withdrawal of guarantee template. She had also attached a one-page memo status of voting equity. It consisted of 2 sentences and a cap table that was just my name. Ethan had an employment agreement, not a share certificate. We had made that choice because sons are loved, owners are accountable. I tapped my signature into the fields that could take it. For the ones that required wet ink, I replied, "Send a runner to my house. Small gate on Willow. I'll be at my desk by 11. Linda pinged me a link to the bank portals with my pre-auth queued. I opened the Granite interface, saw the list of active users, slid the toggle off beside Ethan Hale admin. The system asked me if I was sure, like a timid clerk. I clicked yes. On the card controls, I tapped lock. The screen complied like a good lock does. I checked the guarantee schedules again. The dates lined up. The amounts told the story numbers. Always tell someone living a life on credit that attached to my name. That's on me. You don't teach a boy to read a ledger by making him the ledger. I put the phone down, palmed cold water one more time, and let it sit inside my hands until my skin stung. When I looked up, the man in the mirror had the kind of face you wear to a funeral you scheduled yourself. In the pocket of my jacket, I could feel the edge of a small leather fob, the brass key from the first office I ever rented. I thumbed it like a rosary. You build, you guard, you repair. In that order. I unlocked the door. The hallway air met me like an old dog, cool, loyal, not asking questions. The bathroom fan kept humming, and as I stepped out, the sound shifted in my head. Deepened stretch turned into the steady white noise of server racks and bank systems and printers pushing out forms. The house was a house. The paper was a machine. Tomorrow the machine would do what I told it to do. I stepped into the study and the house changed temperature. The desk lamp made an island out of oak and paper. I set the unopened burgundy to the side like a guest who would not be staying. The leather ledger sat in the center. The brass key warmed under my thumb. I pulled the bylaws binder close and woke the printer. 10:47 p.m. I opened a fresh document and wrote board minutes the way a mason lays a plumb-first stone. Hale Construction Inc. Special action by unanimous, written consent. Present as chair and sole voting shareholder Walter Hale. Purpose to protect corporate assets and withdraw delegated authorities. I wrote the findings in plain language that survives courtrooms. I described loss of confidence based on misuse of company resources and undisclosed conflicts to be adjudicated separately if needed. I inserted the citations from Section 4.2 and Section 6.5. Words lined up, dates found each other. The printer took the pages and sighed like a small engine. I sent the minutes to Blair with a subject line only I would write at this hour. This is the bridge. She replied with a red-line draft in 3 minutes. We tightened verbs. We named accounts and vendors. The second print sounded like a decision. 11:03 p.m. My email stacked up with confirmations from bank portals. Granite, First Federal, Riverside. I opened each in turn. I checked the user list and slid Ethan off admin roles. The toggle felt like a light in an empty room. I reviewed ACH filters and created holds where Linda had placed placeholders. Payroll stayed clean for the crews in the field. Executive stipends went to manual review. Expense auto-approvals were cut to 0. I printed the confirmation pages and dated each with a fine black pen. 11:17 p.m. Linda's name flashed on the screen with a spreadsheet that could be used as a mirror if you needed to see yourself plainly. 5 months of Ethan's transactions by category and merchant. Hotel nights that were not business. A golf charity breakfast that never got its receipt. Subscription boxes with no project code. I scrolled without heat. The proof would live in a folder. Tonight was about locks and keys. 11:32 p.m. ACH hold set on operating and payroll subaccounts at First Federal. I watched the progress bar move and thought about how men used to drive to the bank in snow to do this work with handshakes. The digital hold confirmed with a chime. Linda called as if we had scheduled it to the second. "Without your guarantee, the mortgage is in instant demand," she said. "I know. The system will generate a notice before sunrise. Lakeshore will feel it by mid-morning. The BMW lease will trigger repossession as soon as the dealer's software refreshes. Lines of credit tied to his user profile will freeze. Do you want me to warn HR? Prepare them. Do not execute until 9. We are not burning payroll or benefits for innocent staff. Understood. I will stage the HR email so you can press send in the morning. Subject line, readiness, notice. And Walter." I waited. I am glad the paper is on your side. Paper is on the side of whoever wrote it when they were still calm. We hung up. I checked the time and let the quiet fill the room again. 11:48 p.m. I walked to the bookcase and pulled a red folder labeled Lakeshore. The photo from closing day sat on top. Ethan and Sloane on a balcony whined, pushing her hair, the lake flat and obedient behind them. Beneath the photo, the promissory note. Principal forgiveness at my discretion. Payable on demand. 6 sentences, 2 signatures. When people call a gift, they are often describing a hope. I never sign hopes. I sign paper. I placed the note on the desk blotter and set a yellow flag on it so the runner would not miss it. 11:56 p.m. I typed a simple letter to the mortgage servicer. Notice of withdrawal of guarantee per the attached. I did not insult the clerk who would read it by sounding angry. Clerks are the closest thing we have left to angels who file. 12:05 a.m. I drafted the termination letter. For cause loss of confidence, misuse of corporate resources, and undisclosed conflicts. Effective upon delivery. Return of all corporate property within 24 hours. I added a paragraph about confidentiality and a line offering a meeting with counsel present if he wanted to contest. I signed it and did not date it. Paper stays patient until you tell it what day to wake up. I opened HR's scheduling tool and created a meeting placeholder called Access Changes. I added Robert and Linda and Blair and the head of HR. I set it to 9:30 a.m. I attached a 1-page checklist. Badge deactivation, email lockout, device retrieval, severance field left blank. 12:19 a.m. The Granite Bank portal kicked me out for inactivity because the world became afraid of inattentive men with authority. Good. I logged back in and printed the recent device sign-ins so we would know if Ethan tried a midnight rescue. The logs were quiet. He thought he had time. Entitlement teaches a man to count on slow clocks. 12:27 a.m. I printed certified mail labels and green cards. The envelopes stacked clean and ready for the runner. Mortgage servicer, dealer finance, Monarch fixtures. 2 smaller vendors who knew Ethan by first name. I wrote the addresses in my hand that a judge once described as clear. I slipped the board consent, the revocations, and the notice templates into the runner packet with a note that said, "Knock softly, the house is sleeping." 12:40 a.m. Certified revocations queued. Blair texted, "Runner leaves my house in 10 minutes. Expect him at 11:30. She attached thumbnails of stamped pages like a doctor sending x-rays before surgery. I zoomed to the signature blocks and saw my name floating there waiting for ink. I opened the drawer and took out the pen Rose gave me when the company turned 10. The cap still clicked like it did that night when we toasted with cheap champagne because the first 10 are the ones you survive by will more than by profit. I signed the revocations, the consents, the notices. I flipped each page and let the ink breathe. On the lakeshore note, I paused. The balcony in the photo looked like joy. I remembered the way Ethan squeezed my shoulder on that day and said, "You didn't have to do this." I said I wanted to because I believed it. Wants become lessons when men forget the ground they stand on. I signed the call notice. My hand did not shake. 12:53 a.m. I wrote 3 short emails I hoped I would never need to read again. One to Robert with the line, "You are interim until the board confirms." One to HR with the subject, "If we need to press send." One to Blair with "Thank you" in the body because gratitude is also paperwork and it goes on record when you do it right. 1:07 a.m. I did one thing that was not in any binder. I opened a new document and started a ledger for Ethan that had nothing to do with debt and everything to do with memory. A column for actions, a column for consequences, a column for signals he might someday choose differently. I wrote the first entry plainly: Christmas table shove, immediate authority withdrawal, child witnesses protected. I left the last column blank. The printer chimed one last time and spit out Blair's cover memo with the list of what would move between now and dawn. I shut the lid on the burgundy and slid it back into the cabinet. The house had gone fully quiet, the kind of quiet that is both mercy and verdict. I turned off the desk lamp and stood in the dark to let my eyes adjust to a future I could not yet see. Outside the window, somewhere beyond the bare trees and the parked cars and the thin snow, a set of church bells began to mark the hour. They sounded like metal held to account by rope and rhythm. They sounded like paper with a seal. They sounded like morning on its way. At 9:58 a.m., the runner left a stack of envelopes on my oak. Wet ink green cards, a rubber band that remembered other mornings. I signed where the tabs told me slid on a jacket and watched the second hand touch 12. 10:02 a.m. Linda's readiness email loaded on my screen. ACH holds confirmed. Signatory removal complete. Cards at soft lock. Toggle to hard at 10:30. HR draft staged. 10:07 a.m. Blair's subject lines lined the inbox like soldiers. Revocation notices sent. Guarantee withdrawals served. Servicers auto-acknowledged. A clerk at the mortgage company stamped the digital copy and pushed it back through the wire in 22 seconds. She would go back to her coffee. Paper would do the rest. 10:12 a.m. I stood at the window with the brass key in my palm and counted a breath to 4 and out to 6. The house had that held breath quiet a few moments before weather changes. In the street, a garbage truck hissed and moved on. 10:15 a.m. The first call hit Ethan. I wasn't in his kitchen to hear it, but my phone captured the echo, a simultaneous alert from First Federal's portal: guarantor withdrawn. Borrower contacted. In the log, Linda shared the note appeared. Borrower notified of immediate demand provision. Another chime, Wells corporate card hard locked. Granite admin rights revoked. The system spat receipts like confetti no one would enjoy. 10:18 a.m. Linda called. First Bank made contact. He argued my father won't do this. The line went quiet when the clerk read him the section and date. Proceed, I said. 10:23 a.m. The auto mailer from the servicer sent a PDF with a subject line that didn't bother with feelings. Notice of default guarantee withdrawal trigger. In the first paragraph, pay the full amount due or cure per terms. On page 3, a schedule of late fees. He never noticed when I paid them on time. Numbers sit very still until you make them stand up. 10:26 a.m. Granite pushed a suspension notice on the revolving line attached to his user profile. Pending review. The kind of phrasing that makes grown men sweat. I unmuted my phone for the first time in years and let it ring once in my hand without answering, just to remember the sound of a device that wants your attention and doesn't deserve it. 10:30 a.m. Card locks flipped from soft to hard. Linda sent a 3-word text, "It's done." 10:33 a.m. The dealer's software refreshed. A form letter queued for the repo vendor with a barcode that told a man with a tow truck where to be and when. Another chime. BMW Financial. Due to guarantee withdrawal repossession authorized. In a small corner of the PDF, a stock photo of a smiling family and a sedan pretended any of this was friendly. 10:41 a.m. HR pinged with the keycard queue. Ethan Hale deactivate at 11:45 a.m. I moved the time up 15 minutes. Mercy can be punctual. It can also be practical. 10:52 a.m. Robert texted a photo of the corner office. The desk cleared. The plant left in its place like a small green witness. In the middle of the mahogany, my note in my hand. 4 words. Not your seat. I replied. Leave the envelope under it. He sent another photo. The termination letter face down, sealed waiting. 11:03 a.m. The lobby camera screenshot caught Ethan walking through the revolving door. Security welcomed him because security is trained to welcome faces that have always passed. In the shot, his tie is straight and his eyes are making calculations. He still believes there is more time than there is. He nods at the guard. Steps into the elevator. The timestamp burned quietly in the corner. 11:04:19. 11:06 a.m. Robert called and put me on mute. I heard the office hum and the elevator tone, and then his voice low, steady. Morning, Ethan. What is this, Robert? Why are my boxes in storage? Collect your things from storage. 5 minutes. You can't. I can. The chair can. Your keycard is active for 10 minutes. Use them. Paper doesn't have a temper, but sometimes it sounds like it does through a good man's voice. I kept my phone to my ear and watched the cursor blink on an empty email I wasn't going to send. 11:09 a.m. HR's system generated a polite email to his personal address because Ayat had prepped for this last night. Keycard deactivated as of 11:15 a.m. Please return devices to security. Another email spun out like a calm tide. Access to corporate email suspended. If you believe this is an error, contact HR. It wasn't. 11:12 a.m. In the garage, the repo driver texted a photo to the finance office standard procedure to prove condition. Ethan's BMW behind yellow lines still warm from the drive-in. The driver's note was almost kind. Unit secured in 5. Owner present. My jaw tightened on reflex and then let go. People think consequences arrive with sirens. Most come with clipboards. 11:14 a.m. The building guard called Robert to say a man was yelling by the turnstiles. He wasn't violent. He was loud in the way people get when they discover gravity. Robert asked him to escort Ethan to storage and then to the street. The guard said, "Of course, Mr. Fisk. I remembered when we promoted that guard to shift lead because he never raised his voice and always remembered names." Quiet competence is the spine of any building. 11:16 a.m. The foreclosures team at the servicer sent an email with an attached timeline. Due to guarantee withdrawal, the loan is in immediate demand. If amount not remitted within 30 days, proceedings commence. Most people think foreclosure is a sheriff at dawn. It begins as a paragraph. I filed it in a folder named after the property instead of the man. 11:18 a.m. A drone camera somewhere on the internet would love the tableau outside tow truck's ratchet clacking into place. Rubber kissing steel. A man in a suit on the phone saying into air that has stopped answering. I didn't watch it. Robert did. He narrated in 3 simple sentences without adjectives. The chain's on. He tried to get in. The driver showed him the authorization. He stepped back. 11:20 a.m. I pressed send on HR's access changes meeting. 9:30 still held, but I wanted the calendar to say the truth in writing. Linda responded with a checkmark and then wrote, "Granite flagged attempted admin login from Ethan's phone. Blocked by policy." I typed back, "Good." 11:23 a.m. Sloane's number appeared on my screen and went to voicemail. I didn't listen. There are words that belong to later or never. Later often chooses never for you. 11:25 a.m. Ethan called my number once, twice a third time, then stopped. Blair's paralegal messaged me. Courtesy note delivered to his counsel, no direct contact. Harassment will be met with restraining relief. My gratitude came out as 2 letters TY. She responded with a thumbs up. Even lawyers use hieroglyphs when the facts are simple. 11:28 a.m. Security sent the automatic notice keycard deactivated. The subject line didn't gloats. It never does. It just tells a door to stay shut. 11:31 a.m. Robert again, voice like level ground. He's out. I left the envelope on the desk. Plant stays. Crew is clear. Do you want me to walk the 5th floor? Walk it once. Say nothing. 11:33 a.m. Linda's spreadsheet updated in real time. The corporate card attempted 3 charges in 90 seconds rideshare coffee, something titled River Club. Declined, declined, declined. The system stamped each with the same impartial sentence. Action prohibited. 11:36 a.m. My phone vibrated with a text from Noah. No preface. Are you okay? I wrote back. Yes. Are you? I'm fine. Mom is with Uncle Ray. I saw the choice he made in the pronoun and left it there in peace. 11:39 a.m. The repo driver sent his final photo to the dealer finance office, and the tow truck ratchet hit that last tooth that means there's no rolling off. The sound arrived in my ear as memory more than as noise. Years of loading lumber into trucks gave me the soundtrack of removal. It clicked again, then settled. 11:42 a.m. A personal email from Ethan reached the inbox I keep for family. Subject line none. Body a single sentence that didn't know how to ask for anything. Dad. I let it sit. Men think sorry is a key you find under the mat. It isn't. It's a lock you learn to turn over years. 11:45 a.m. The keycard deactivated email's timestamp matched the turnstile's log. He tried it twice. Red light both times. He set the plastic on the desk by security like a man leaving a country that rescinded his visa. The guard said, "Good morning, Mr. Hale," because habit clings after authority leaves. Ethan didn't answer. The guard did what good guards do, opened a door for someone else. 11:49 a.m. I stood up, slid the envelopes into a messenger bag and turned off the desk lamp. In the street, a bus exhaled and moved forward. The tow truck clacked one more time and the sound inside my head changed from chain to steel wheel on steel rail. Subway brakes found their notes somewhere under the loop, that long, hard squeal that says movement costs something. Stopping does too. The tow truck's last click was still in my ear when the phone lit with a name I expected and a tone I didn't. Raymond Cole. I let it ring once. Twice. I answered on the third like a man opening a door he already knows is safe. "Walter," he said, and the air in his voice was different from last night. No gala oil, no audience sheen. "I owe you an apology." For what? For standing in a seat that was not mine and for doing nothing when a son forgot the order of a house. "I'm sorry." "Apology accepted," I said. Short is the only way a real apology fits. He exhaled. "I'll keep it shorter. I just spoke to Ethan." I pictured the missed call list on Ethan's screen, each bank's name stacked like a new kind of Christmas garland. And he asked me to intercede. He used the word emergency and the word misunderstanding in the same sentence. I told him neither applied. I also told him what I should have told him at the table, which is, how you treat your father is your character reference. I said it plainly. He didn't like the taste. Truth isn't always sweet. Good. The words landed the way plumb lines do, straight down, nothing fancy. "Walter," he continued, "I'd like to see you, not to talk about Ethan, to talk about work. There's a downtown infill I've been circling. Mid-rise, tricky soil, a church next door that won't tolerate vibration. I've heard the stories about your foundations. I want to talk shop. Coffee in an hour." The boy I raised had tried to purchase respect with a chair. The man calling understood the cheaper price of incompetence. I glanced at the corner of my desk. The brass key lay on the ledger like a bookmark in a life. 1 hour. I'll be at the office. "Walter, one more thing. Yes, you disrespected the man who taught you everything you market as yours. I told him that. I need you to know I said it to his face. The exact sentence I would have chosen in the exact order. Thank you." We hung up. My phone fluttered with a scatter of other things: Sloan's number, the mortgage servicer's auto no reply, Robert's quiet check-ins. I kept the screen dark as a mercy to myself. The calendar chimed mid-thought with something the software knew before I did. Invite Coffee Project Exploratory. Sender R. Cole. Location Hale Construction Conference B. I clicked accept. The system placed it between HR's 9:30 and a vendor call I had no intention of keeping. I locked the house and walked to the truck. Downtown wore its post-holiday gray like a uniform. In the garage under my building, a small spill of oil drew a map only mechanics can read. On the 5th floor, the door opened to that clean smell of dustless carpet and toner. Robert met me halfway. His shirt sleeves rolled, his face arranged in the neutrality of good leadership. "He's gone," Robert said. "Plant watered. Boxes stored. The 5th floor is quiet." "Good. HR ready when we are." I postponed until your nod. Nod. I set my bag on the desk and the phone face down beside it. The missed call list glowed in my periphery like a moral of the story, but I didn't lift it. I thumbed the coffee machine's button. It wheezed, hissed, found pressure, the same song kitchens sing and engines echo. The office warmed by degrees the way a man does after a hard swim. At 11:57 a.m., Raymond stepped through the glass with the small bow of a man who knows doors. No entourage. Blue overcoat. A folder under his arm, thick enough to be serious and thin enough to be solvable. We touched hands the way men do when they're not counting rings. "Thank you for coming," I said. "Thank you for not making me meet you at a restaurant where chairs matter," he said. We sat at the round table that has never humiliated anyone. He placed the folder down and cut to it. 4 parcels on Wabash. Air rights complicated by a 19th century easement. We need a foundation that doesn't rattle the choir next door. I've watched your crews slip mat slabs like lace. You've been watching the right things, I said. Show me where you think the load wants to run. He pulled out site plans and tapped with a finger that had swung more hammers than his clothes suggested. "I have crews who can pour pretty. I need someone who understands soil like family." "That's not an insult. It's a compliment in a dialect I speak," I said. We walked the drawings. We spoke weights, elastic settlement, vibration, isolation schedules that don't break neighbors. It was a relief the way honesty always is. Neither of us said Ethan's name. Half an hour into competence, Raymond folded his hand on the plan. "I want to say it once more where your walls can hear it. Last night was wrong. I did not stop it, and that made me complicit. I am sorry, and because I cannot undo it, I will do what a man can do, a line action. If we work clean. And about the boy, my stance is public. Any man who uses an elder as a rung on a ladder does not climb with me. A public stance matters more than a private text." "Thank you," I said. He nodded, weighed what to add, chose a small thing. "Your granddaughter's eyes last night reminded me of my sister's in '58 when our father threw a plate and then cried because he had no money for a new one. We grew up on the sound of things breaking and being mended. I prefer mending. That's why I'm here." We talked money. Numbers respect silence, so we let them run and land without adjectives. We drew a range that any honest estimator would bless and any liar would hate. We agreed on a motion, my geotech on site within a week. His counsel to draft a letter of intent with a clause. Only old men write a paragraph about Sunday mornings and church bells and no heavy equipment before noon on holy days. He stood to go. On the way to the door, he stopped. "I told Ethan something else," he said, turning. "You disrespected the man who taught you everything you market as yours. It bears repeating because repetition builds structures as surely as rebar does." "It does," I said. He left. The door shut with that soft, office thud that admits only paper and air. When the hall went quiet again, I allowed myself the courtesy of one look at the missed call list on my phone. 9 from Ethan, then none. A message from Sloan that began with Walter. "I think we can," and trailed off into a transcript I didn't finish. 2 from a number I recognized as Raymond's counsel-efficient people confirming a world that runs on records. And the new line near the top, tidy and unflinching calendar accepted coffee project, exploratory R. Cole. I forwarded the invite to Linda and Robert with a single line, vet schedule for geotech and LOI. Robert responded with a thumbs up and then, without commentary, attached a photo of the corner office again, the plant standing. The envelope unmoved sunlight on wood that didn't care about rank. I filed the image in the ledger of the day under a column named for things that stay where they should. The phone lit one more time. Ethan. I watched it until it went dark. In another room of the city, he was finding out what silence tastes like when it's not a punishment, but a boundary. On my desk, the coffee machine gave one last hiss as the drip slowed to nothing. I poured a cup, set it beside the brass key, and listened to the office breathe. The day folded in on itself like a cardboard box. By late afternoon, I was standing on the sidewalk across from Ethan's townhouse, watching a rental truck idle with a blinking hazard light that pulsed like a tired heart. Snow had slipped into rain, the kind that slicks everything without drama. Sloane came down the steps with a manila folder held the way you carry something you don't want to drop or keep. "Walter," she said. Her voice wasn't sharp. It was the tone nurses use when they've run out of soft. "Do you want me to go?" I asked. "No, I want you to hear me. Then I want you to see the kids." She handed me the folder. Temporary separation papers. A custody stipulation that had already learned the weight of a stapler. I scanned the headings. Joint legal physical rotation pending housing. Therapist recommendation. No disparagement clause. Somewhere between page 2 and 3, a motel receipt slid loose, date stamped, the total circled in pen. Room 214. Plastic key tagged with a number big enough for tired eyes. "He has $280 in cash," she said. "He told me that like it was a plan. The paper says he'll have them weekends when he has a place." She paused, then added, "Because the human thing to add is always the truest. I can't have them sleep in a place that smells like other problems." "That's fair," I said. "Is any of this fair, Walter?" "Not in the way people use that word. In the other way, maybe." She exhaled a winter cloud that wanted to be spring. "I'm taking them to my parents for a few weeks. Dad wants locks changed. Mom wants casseroles. You know the choreography." "I do." She looked past me at the truck. "We tried," she said. "I married a man, and somewhere in there a boy kept deciding." The truck driver shifted in his seat and checked a clipboard. The tape gun in the foyer squealed a long plastic rip I have heard in warehouses and kitchens. Noah came down with a duffel that bulged in the middle and thinned at the ends like a snake that swallowed the wrong shape. He nodded at me, then at the paper in my hand, the kind of nod boys learn when they understand contracts better than they want to. Lily followed with a shoebox covered in blue construction paper and taped stars. She held it like it was alive. "What's that?" I asked. "It's for the new room," she said. "A shadow box. We made them in art. You put things that are true inside so the room remembers you." "That's smart," I said. She opened the lid enough for me to see what counted as true. A paintbrush nub, a ticket stub to a school concert, a photo of the four of us from a summer fair, the corners worn white where fingers had lived. On the underside of the lid, she'd written a sentence in pencil that almost broke in the curve of the Y. "Home is where the gentle things are." "You made that," I said. "It's not very straight," she said. "Straight is something you aim for. Gentle is something you keep," I said. She closed the lid and looked relieved. Ethan came down last without a box. He had the motel key on its plastic tag in his palm like a confession. He looked at me first, then at the folder, then at nothing. The skin under his eyes had changed color since yesterday. He tried to speak and decided against it. Sloane watched him decide. "We'll be at my parents'," she told him. "I've emailed you the schedule. You can see them at the counselor's office this week. After that, we'll see." He nodded. He was learning the economy of verbs. Noah cleared his throat and stepped closer to me. "Are you coming with us, Grandpa?" "Not today," I said. "I'm going to see you after school on Wednesday. Like we said." He looked at Sloane for confirmation. She gave it with a small nod that meant she had liked fewer things than she forgave this week, and this made the list of the few. I reached into my coat and brought out 2 small envelopes in the kind of smile you use when you're careful not to turn kindness into spectacle. "For you two." Inside a photo each. One of Noah and me under a car hood the summer we rebuilt a carb for no good reason except to know how. One of Lily sitting on the porch swing with Rose's quilt over her lap and a book open to a page with a boat. On the back of each a line in my hand. "When you're not here, you're still here." Lily took hers and pressed the envelope to the shadow box lid like she was checking if glue worked through paper. Noah slid his into his pocket without looking because some gestures look better later. Ethan watched all of it happen like a man at a window of a train he is not on. He shifted the key from one hand to the other and looked at Sloane. "I'll get a place," he said. It's a sentence and a prayer when a man says it that way. Sloane's mouth said, "I know," and her eyes said, "Please do," and her shoulders said, "Not with my help." The truck beeped as it eased into park. The driver came in with a dolly and a grin that said, "This is my 5th house today, and every family sounds the same when boxes breathe." He nodded at me, at Ethan, at Sloan, the universal nod of men who carry things. I asked Sloan if I could ride with them as far as the corner where the bus stop stands. "I don't like goodbyes done to people," I said. "I like them with people." She said yes, before she knew she'd say yes. We loaded the last of the boxes that were theirs and left the furniture that was the property's. Language gets vindictive in moves. We tried to keep it plain. In the car, Noah took the front seat and navigated like a captain on a short river. Lily sat with the shadow box in her lap and her winter hat pushed back just enough to show the place where hair and childhood argue. Sloan drove slow, like streets deserve. Halfway to the corner, Lily asked the question homes ask when they're on wheels. "Is Dad in trouble forever?" "No," I said. "Trouble isn't a place, it's a series of turns. People take different ones and find different roads. Some lead back, some don't. But he's still your dad on all of them." "Will you be mad forever?" she asked. "I don't do forever with feelings," I said. "I do days. Today I'm not mad. I'm careful. That's different." Noah stared at the wipers like they were a metronome he could set his life to. "Grandpa, am I supposed to?" He couldn't find the verb. "No." "You're not responsible for our consequences," I said. That line lives in me from someplace older than this mess. My voice found it like a nail finds wood. He nodded and let out a breath he must have been holding since the fork hit the plate last night. "Okay." At the corner, Sloan pulled over. She put the car in park and looked at me the way a person looks at water when they've carried it a long time and don't know if it's safe to drink. "Thank you for not making me choose sides in front of them," she said. "I won't. Neither will you if you can help it. But if sides show up anyway, we'll show them the door." She smiled for real for the first time that day, a small coin of light. "We'll try." I opened my door. Noah leaned across the console and bumped his shoulder against mine the way boys say "I love you" when other people are watching. Lily held up the shadow box. "Can you put something in it for me later? What's something from your house that smells like cinnamon and sawdust?" "I know the thing," I said. "I'll bring it Wednesday." They drove away. The truck pulled out behind them, turning the block into a procession without music. Ethan sat on the stoop with the motel key tag turning under his thumb like a cheap planet, the plastic clacking against his ring. He did not look up when I passed. I didn't require it. Men sometimes learn better when the sky is where they look. I walked back toward my office through a neighborhood made of small porches and big weather. In the construction window of a closed hardware store, a tape gun sat beside a row of fresh boxes and a sign that said, "We cut keys." A woman inside was sweeping with her headphones on, her movements neat as ledger lines. At the building, I took the stairs to feel my breath change into useful work. On my desk, the custodian had left a strip of box tape and a marker because even offices move sometimes. I pressed the tape's serrated edge, and it gave that raspy song that always sounds like leaving. I set it down and picked up a tape measure from the drawer, thumbed the latch, and let the blade snap out. The metal tongue bit air with a clean, decisive click that echoed like an answer on a job site. I learned about the night shift the way fathers learn things after the weather changes through small reports that don't ask for answers. The first came from Noah Flat as a bus schedule. "Dad works nights now, cleaning offices." He said it like you say a fact that refuses to be either shame or pride. I said good and meant it the way a carpenter means level. 2 weeks later, I was in a lobby waiting on a courier when the janitorial vendor list on the security desk flickered and sorted itself. Brenda's Cleaners Inc. shift lead, Ethan Hale. The guard tapped the screen and said to no one in particular, "Brenda runs a tight ship." I said nothing and let the information settle where it could do no harm. At midnight on a Wednesday, I was at Klein & Royce's tower to sign a last-minute geotech access letter because the city had decided sleep was a suggestion. The building breathed that after-hours air-cold marble and toner and the hum of machines that never sleep because paper never sleeps. In the service corridor, a punch clock clacked at the top of the hour the way honest devices announce themselves. A row of blue uniforms hung on a rack like raincoats in a storm nobody mentions. I kept walking until a mop squeaked somewhere ahead. Long, low notes, the music of humility. I didn't look for him. I turned a corner and saw a man with my shoulders pushing a bucket along tile and checking a task clipboard with the concentration of a surgeon. His back was to me. The blue uniform took all the family names out of him and put a job in. He wiped the edge of a baseboard with the kind of care people reserve for things they own. When he turned, he didn't see me. He saw a streak he'd missed. He went back for it and took it out of the world without theater. Brenda was at the end of the hall, a woman with a bun and a face that understood rent. She was counting bottles in a supply caddy and telling a kid how much dilution a floor finish deserves. When she finished, she looked down the hall at my son and nodded once like a foreman nods at a beam that holds. "Show up on time," she said, loud enough for the corridor to hear. "Be useful. That's leadership where it matters." Ethan answered the way a man who used to wield schedule as a weapon learns to wield it as a tool. "Yes, ma'am." I walked past like I had business that could tolerate observation. He didn't register me. Good. I didn't want him to wear the wrong face for the right work. Later that week, Linda forwarded a maintenance request from the Klein & Royce office manager. "Please keep Ethan's crew on our floor rotation, reliable and thorough." You can't buy that sentence. You earn it one baseboard at a time. I read it twice, then closed the email so I wouldn't be tempted to print it and put it somewhere it didn't belong. Pride is a solvent if you spill it. Noah called on Thursday to talk about a physics lab that had gone wrong and a teacher who said wrong is a path, not a cliff. He added without drama that Dad sleeps in the mornings now, so we talk in the afternoons. He's sharing a room in Wicker Park. Cheap. A guy named Leon with 3 alarms that work. I pictured the room, 2 metal beds, 1 window that remembered better, paint a hot plate that had seen too many eggs. I put a hand on the brass key in my pocket to remind myself that a key is not a wand. I heard more bits. Lily said Dad's hands smell like lemon at pickup. She said it like a child who catalogs a new planet. Sloan emailed the counselor and me a schedule that had the careful geometry of a person who's done hard math with feelings. Wednesdays with me, Sundays with me. No triangulation, no questions the kids can't carry. Rules keep small shoulders from breaking. In my own office, the days stacked up with sober work. The LOI with Raymond moved through council without finding a place to snag. The geotech crew worked in the rain and came back with numbers that told the soil's story like a hymn. The church next door agreed to our vibration plan with the condition that bells trumped rebar on Sunday mornings. We signed that clause with the dignity I want to be buried in. At another tower, nobody remembers which because they all smell the same. After midnight, I saw the blue again. A bucket, a corridor, a clipboard, the body language of quiet competence. I stayed in the shadow of a server room door and watched the economy of motion. Lift, swipe, rinse, ring. The muscles in his forearm had found a new kind of work. No flourish, no shortcut. In the break room, a microwaved meal turned in a circle behind glass like every lonely dinner. A punch clock gave off one clean clack and then forgot it had made a sound. Brenda saw me before he did. She didn't flinch or pretend surprise. She nodded like she nods at anyone holding a building together after hours. "You run the crews that build it. We run the crews that keep it from collapsing into coffee cups," she said. "You run them well. We have a good crew." The new guy listens. Doesn't talk about what he used to be. That helps. It does. She looked past me at Ethan, then back. "I don't know your business. I know mops and people. He's earning a tiny raise next month if he keeps it steady." "You pay for steady, you get steady," I said. She smiled. "A real one. You'd be surprised how many men try to buy it without paying for it." I wouldn't. A week later, the facilities coordinator at Klein & Royce sent a second note. "Please assign Ethan's crew to the executive floor permanently. Reliability noted by client." The words felt like rain on a steel roof, steady earned, almost musical. I forwarded the note nowhere. I told no one who would weaponize it. I folded it into the ledger in my head under a column I hadn't used for him in years. I didn't see the room in Wicker Park, but I could sketch it. Noah mentioned the window frame that whistles on windy nights. Lily liked the neighbor's cat that patrols the stairs like a landlord. Ethan bought a used lamp for $13 and texted a photo of it to Noah, a yellow shade, a crooked pull chain, an island of light on a particle board nightstand. Noah replied with a thumbs up and a meme I didn't understand but recognized as love in the grammar of boys. On Sunday after church, I stood on my porch and watched the light do that thin winter thing on the sidewalk and thought about boilers and redemption and other machines that work harder when it's cold. The mail brought an envelope with Brenda's Cleaners ink across the top. Inside, a photocopy of a suggestion card from a client survey. Crew is always 10 minutes early and leaves the place better than they found it. No name on the line, no need. The sentence is the whole story. The next Wednesday when I saw him at the counselor's office waiting room, the kid's already inside building something out of colored blocks while an adult watches. He looked different in a way that men do after 3 months of an honest grind. His face had learned stillness. His eyes had learned to stop running ahead of the day. The blue uniform was clean. The clipboard under his arm had checkboxes on it with a pen clipped like a soldier. He saw me and not the past. He nodded the way crews nod in doorways. "How's the night shift?" I asked. "Chairs don't matter," he said. "Schedules do. Floors do. Showing up does." Good. He didn't fill the air with apologies. He didn't ask me for positions or favors or keys. He looked at the door where his children were, and then at the clock, and then at me, and held all three without dropping any. I let the silence stand between us because silence can be a bridge if you let it. On the way back to my truck, I passed a storefront where a man was hosing a sidewalk no one would thank him for. The water found dirt and pushed it to a drain that never gets credit. I listened to the mop squeak in my head and let it carry me to my office where a roll of plans waited under a weight. I uncapped a marker and pulled a line across the paper to show where a footing wanted to live. The tip squeaked against the vellum, an answer to the night's music, one honest sound handing the day to another. The park keeps a different time than the city. Benches hold it, trees hold it. On a Tuesday that forgot to be spring, Raymond and I took the same bench we'd used when a footing once needed a hard decision. The sky was a thin gray someone had wiped with a sleeve. The pond had a skin on it, the wind kept smoothing with its palm. Raymond set the roll of plans on his knees and cracked the elastic. He poured coffee from a dented thermos that had been on more job sites than most men I've known. I set the brass key on its leather fob beside me the way you set a compass where it can feel north. Habit, memory, proof you still know which pocket it lives in. We worked without the room's performance that offices require. He slid out the site plan, 4 parcels braided into one problem. The church next door sat like an old neighbor who hears everything. I uncapped a red pencil and traced a rectangle where load wanted to travel. The point squeaked on the vellum in a sound only builders like. Raymond watched the line the way a man watches a tide respect first questions after. He said, "If we run caissons here and here, the choir might feel it." I nodded. The choir always feels what men pretend they don't. Mat slab with isolation joints. We'll float the lobby. Put the mechanical on springs. Sunday mornings, no vibration. We sign it and mean it. He smiled. The small one men earn when physics and conscience agree. And the schedule, we give the church a calendar before we give the city one, I said. Bells trump steel. It's not a favor. It's a rule. A gull cawed from the far railing like it had seniority. A jogger passed head down counting steps. The wind moved the edges of the plans and I anchored them with my thermos and the key fob. Raymond pulled out a pen and wrote choir on the margin with an arrow. Men forget what they don't write. We would not forget this. We talked load paths until the air warmed a degree. We talked soil like family, where it gives, where it refuses, where you listen more than you speak. Raymond told me about a winter in '83 when a pile driver sunk a hymn without permission and an organ went out of tune for a week. We agreed not to repeat other men's lessons. He grew quiet for a minute and watched a mother push a stroller across the path, the blanket tucked into a careful boat under the baby's chin. When he spoke again, he didn't look at me. I told him what I told him, because men who sell respect at the table scare me. I let the red pencil hang above a column line. You told him enough. It's his work now. He nodded eyes on the pond. I meant what I said to you on the phone. How you treat your father is your character reference. He swallowed the rest like an old pill that still works. My shoulders had been carrying a weight so long I had forgotten its name. On that bench, the weight got a name. Then it set itself down. Not because of money, not because of punishment, because a man finally said the one sentence this situation needed to be hung from. We went back to the plan. He tapped the property line. Can we keep the shoring off the church's garden? We can if we over-design the corner and pretend we're rich there. It costs more. It buys peace. He laughed with his mouth closed. Peace is more expensive and always worth it. A boy on a skateboard rattled past. The deck slapped the concrete, and the sound felt like a summer that hasn't arrived but sent a postcard. I lifted the thermos and took a sip that tasted like every job site morning since 1979. Coffee and air and the metal lip of a container that never needed a dishwasher to tell it was clean. I felt someone watching us before I saw anyone. Not the paranoid kind of feeling, the practical kind. Another set of eyes in the space. The hairs on the forearm register these things before the brain votes. I didn't turn. You don't turn when you don't intend to invite. I let the pond hold my gaze and kept the pencil moving. Raymond was telling me about a utilities conflict on Wabash when a shadow aligned with the bench in the way you recognize without admitting recognition. Tall, familiar slope to the shoulders from a decade of pretending posture is a resume. Blue jacket that wanted to be invisible. The kind of stillness you learn when you've been around machinery and learned not to get hurt. He was close enough to hear the red pencil squeak, but far enough to claim he hadn't come looking. Raymond didn't see him. Or he did and chose the old mercy of not seeing. He reached for the plan and asked the question I love most. Where does the load want to go if we listen to it? I pointed with the pencil and drew 3 lines, gentle arcs meeting squares, a small geometry of obedience. Into the ground that can carry it, I said. Not into the wall that can't. Then I said the other thing I was there to say to him, to the air, to the shadow that might have been a sun or a tree. If I forgive too early, my grandkids learn nothing about lines. Raymond breathed out through his nose in that quiet agreement men use when words finally match facts. That is the whole sermon, Walter. We worked in peace for another 20 minutes. I showed him how the mat wanted to float. He showed me where the budget wanted to sink. We found the place between them where honest projects live. When we finished the first pass, I rolled the plans back the way you roll a flag tight without anger and slid the elastic over them. The red pencil went behind my ear like it always does. The brass key went back in the pocket where it has memorized my jacket. The thermos cap clicked like a small lock on a large gate. We stood. He shook my hand with his thumb pressed like men do when they've carried something together. He said, I'll have council draft language for Sunday mornings and vibration limits. You send me your geotext letterhead. We'll make this thing hold. We will, I said. He left one way, I left another. The shadow did not follow either. I didn't look back. The park kept its time, the pond kept its skin, the gull found something to argue with down by the bins. On the sidewalk by the gate, a church bell practiced a note and decided it wasn't time yet. I breathed better than I had in years and didn't apologize to the air for it. I put the brass key in my hand and thumbed the edge until my heart matched the metal's calm. The city rose behind the trees like a job someone had started in a hurry and finished with care. A bus wheezed up to the stop, and the doors yawned in that civic sigh that forgives everybody for being late. I crossed the street and let the noise of the loop take the place of wind. Somewhere above me, a gull made one last complaint and then disappeared behind a line of glass and steel. I stepped into my building's lobby, and as the doors closed on the park, the elevator bell up the hall found its bright chime and announced a floor the way a new shift announces itself to men who clean it. A year is a long, short thing. It fits inside 12 rent checks and 4 tires and 1 winter that overstays. It also fits inside 2 voices that call me on Wednesdays and Sundays and tell me pieces of a life I am not in and still care about. By late November, the counselor didn't need to sit in on their time with me anymore. Boundaries behave when adults do. We kept the rhythm after school on Wednesdays at my place. Sunday mornings after church at the diner that keeps the coffee warm on purpose. We learned to talk about homework, weather, and courage without stepping on landmines. Sometimes we talked about their father, but only when they folded him into the conversation like flour, not the point necessary for structure. Noah told me first as if he were reading lab results. Dad coordinates a crew now. 5 people. He made the schedule that got the contract renewal. He didn't put any pride words on it, just placed the fact between the salt and the ketchup, like something that belongs on a table. I pictured the punch clock, the blue, the edges of a checklist rounded by use, and I let the image stand without commentary. There are compliments that collapse under adjectives. This was one. December crawled in with lights that never made the air warmer. Lily brought her shadow box to my kitchen on a Wednesday and asked for the thing we'd agreed on months ago. The cinnamon sawdust thing, she said. I opened the drawer where I keep the little wooden plane that Rose used to use to shave the corners off a stubborn picture frame. It still held a whisper of cinnamon from the Christmas we carved our own ornaments because the store ones looked tired. I set it in the box beside her ticket stub and the paintbrush nub. She invited each object in with ceremony. Then she told me something she had been waiting to say until she had a lid to close on it. Dad sounds different now, calm, like he's where he chose to be. I nodded and felt the way that sentence rearranged a line in my chest. Choice is a load-bearing word. Men misuse it and collapse rooms. Used properly, it holds. Noah, who keeps his praise in a locker most of the time, added one he'd been hiding. He showed me his pay stub. Not to brag. To prove he's not lying when he says he's fine. He held it like a passport. There was the number, not much, but exactly honest, and his name on it without any other name tethering it. Noah shrugged at the memory. I told him pay stubs are boring. He said boring is what I'm aiming for. I imagined the tiny apartment he and Lily described in bits. A thrift store couch with arms that squeak because screws recognize when they've been asked to reincarnate. 2 mismatched chairs whose scratches don't match each other but do match the life that produced them. A small plant on a sill that learned the weak winter sun and stopped asking for more. A framed photo of Noah and Lily that used to sit on a desk by a window 30 stories up and now lives on particle board, no worse for the demotion. He picked the frame out of a dollar bin, Lily said, eyes bright with the sacrament of small choices. It's not straight, but he smiles when he looks at it. On a Sunday near Advent, the church choir started rehearsing earlier for a cantata that had too many pages. After the service, the sound of sopranos practicing found the street and braided with bus brakes and shoe leather and that civic hum that forgives lateness. We walked out into it and let the song chase us as far as the diner. Noah ordered pancakes like a teenager storing sun for later. Lily sipped cocoa like she was taking a vote on sweetness. They told me about a night when their father's crew hit 4 floors in a lobby before dawn, and Brenda handed him a raise in an envelope the size of a bill. Tiny, she said. He called it air. That's when he bought the plant. It's on the sill. It leans toward morning. We did not pretend that money had become generous or that loneliness had stopped visiting his address. We acknowledged both, like you acknowledge weather, present inconvenient, not personal. The maturity lived in the way the kids said we're fine and meant for now we are standing upright. The geotech reports for the Wabash job came back clean enough to start, and Raymond's counsel and mine finished their slow dance through language about bells and vibration. On a Monday, he and I met at the site with our foreman. The church's janitor, an older man with hands like rope, walked the garden with us, pointing at things that had names when the city had different edges. We gave him our promise with our eyes, not our resumes. I watched my younger foreman watch me make that promise and saw him file it under how we do this. By mid-December, my calendar had more appointments with concrete than with people. In the spaces around those, the kids kept grafting their new routines onto our old ones. Noah soldered a cheap guitar kit on my workbench and burned his thumb and called it education. Lily brought a song she wanted me to like, and I liked it exactly as much as I could without lying, which is how respect survives generational traffic. One evening before they packed their bags and I packed their leftovers into foil, Lily unfolded a slip of paper from her pocket, the way a magician reveals something that was never magic. "Grandpa," she said, "we didn't tell Dad, but we told him you asked about him. We told him you hoped he was learning what he needs to learn." She studied my face like it might change the next part. He didn't get mad. He said he hopes so too. I let my breath out slowly and set my hand on the table where so many hands had been set in so many moods. Hope unhitched from demand feels like something you can carry without hurting your back. When the week that held Christmas began, my porch had a new habit. In the late afternoon, the light did a thing I had not seen since before Rose left, a lengthening that was less melancholy and more scope. I drank coffee that did not taste like victory. It tasted like air and heat and the ordinary miracle of a machine working as designed. I opened the ledger where I keep lines that the world thinks are sentimental and I think are structural. Under the column for signals he might choose differently, I wrote what Lily had said and what Noah had shown me, and folded the page like a man who trusts paper. On the last Wednesday before Christmas, when the choir's rehearsal leaked through my window and the buses synchronized by accident, the kids stood in my doorway and looked around the kitchen the way people do when they know a place they love will outlast a season they don't. We ate, we washed, we wiped, we laughed at nothing. When they left, Lily pressed her palm to the shadow box on the way out as if it were a doorbell that rings only inside. The apartment went still. Street noise sorted itself into an honest list. Tires, voices, wind playing a flag, the faint off-key chorus trying again to find the note. I stood at the counter with the brass key in my hand. It had gone warm without asking. I set it on the ledger so it could keep company with words. The house was simple. The day was long short. The air was the exact temperature of reflection. There are letters men write that no postman should have to carry, and letters men write that weigh less because they ask for nothing. I pulled a clean sheet from the drawer and laid it on the desk. Outside, the choir climbed up into a chord that finally held. Inside, something answered that had been waiting a year to use its voice. I uncapped the pen. I wrote his name on the top line and then didn't write anything else for a while. The kitchen light clicked on, making a small circle that paper understands. Outside, the choir reheated the same measure until it held. I kept my hand on the pen the way a man keeps his hand on a rail in winter light, steady for balance. The letter I imagined receiving, the one that doesn't beg, doesn't bargain, arrived instead in my mailbox 3 days after Christmas, certified green card stapled to the corner like a scout's badge. The envelope had the squared carefulness of someone who has learned not to hurry. Return address, a Wicker Park street that has seen more bicycles than sedans. I signed for it on the porch, heard the mailman's boots navigate my steps with the patience of a man who has met too many dogs and brought the envelope to the table. I didn't open it at once. I made coffee, rinsed the cup, wiped the counter, let the kitchen do its ordinary work. Then I slid a butter knife along the envelope's mouth, a quiet incision, and pulled out 2 pages. Ethan's handwriting hadn't changed since he was 15. He still pressed hard on verbs lighter on articles like a man who wants action to hold and words to get out of the way. He didn't start with Dad, he started with Walter, which was correct. He said what happened at Christmas a year ago had no defense, so he wouldn't offer one. He described a tile floor, a chair, a sentence he wished he could return to a store that sells better sentences. He said the consequences were just, and that justice had done a quieter thing than he expected, taught him how to live without a rope tied to my name. He listed the work, the mop, the bucket, the clipboard. He named Brenda and said leadership had turned into showing up early and leaving a room better than they found it. He mentioned a tiny raise without making it larger. He said his apartment had a plant that leaned toward morning and a photo of the kids that he looked at before he left for nights and after he came home from them. He attached without comment a photocopy of a pay stub with the decimals right where decimals belong. He wrote one sentence about Lily's shadow box that he had seen on her lap on a Sunday, and another about Noah learning to solder and burning his thumb and calling it curriculum. He apologized once in one line and stopped there. No plea, no plan. One paragraph near the end said he was trying to become a man whose apology could be believed even if it never bought anything back. The last line read, "I don't ask you to write. I ask you to know that I am learning the lesson the hard way and the right way, which might be the same way." I put the pages back in the envelope. I slid the green receipt under the sugar jar because some papers don't need to be filed, they need to live where the hand finds them. I did not write back that day. I let the letter breathe. A week later, when the choir had moved on to new music and the buses had stopped jostling the same puddle, I wrote him 1 page. I said I received his letter and read it more than once. I told him I was glad he was working and that his work sounded honest. I said I would not resume contact and perhaps never would. Then I wrote the sentence that fit the size of the day and the man. Proud of the man you're becoming. Stay that course. I signed with my name and not my role. I sealed the envelope, wrote his address, and took it to the post office where the clerk with the careful hair gave me a certified sticker and explained a process I already understood. I said thank you anyway. Some explanations are liturgies. 2 weeks after that, a different envelope arrived, not from Ethan, not from the bank, not from council. The school counselor's name sat in the corner, and inside was a note on letterhead with a photograph of a hallway full of art and shoes. She wrote to inform me that the small STEM scholarship I had set up in the name of Noah and Lily Hale had been approved by the district. The funds would provide kits and fees for students whose families could not absorb the extra science now charges. She enclosed the first thank you note dictated by a fourth grader who had just built a bridge out of popsicle sticks that held 5 apples before it failed. The counselor wrote a postscript I hadn't asked for. Ethan learned of the scholarship today when the kids told him. He said to tell you thank you, though I understand I am not to pass messages. I am not passing a message. I am reporting a reaction. I set the counselor's note beneath the green certified slip and thought about names on things. I had put theirs on it and not mine, because that is the order I want the world to learn them in. I didn't call anyone. I didn't write anyone. I put on my coat and walked to the school not to be seen but to see the place where small hands touch circuits and learn that current participates when invited. On my way back, the air had a fine, bright edge to it, like a blade that has just been sharpened and set down. I carried a bag of groceries and the sound of children arguing about robots in my head. At home, I mounted a tiny brass plate on the inside of a shadow box near the kitchen light, not the kids' mine. The box holds the little wooden plane, the first office key on its leather fob, a folded copy of the letter I sent the counselor's note, and a third item nobody else would recognize, Rose's thimble, which was always more about mending than about costume. That night, I sat in the quiet and wrote a ledger entry that won't make sense to any auditor. Column 1, wrong done. Column 2, consequence accepted. Column 3, work ongoing. Under signals he might choose differently, I added 2 lines. Letter with no ask. Scholarship reaction, no demand for credit. I closed the book. The house did that thing houses do in winter when the heat clicks and the wood remembers it was once a tree. Weeks went by. Work became a season, not a sprint. The church bells on Wabash learned our schedule the way we had learned theirs. On a Sunday morning, I stood on the site with my foreman and watched a mat slab cure under blankets while the choir warmed up scales through brick. He asked me if I believed in redemption. I told him I believed in mending and in not touching a seam until it holds. Spring arrived lightly the way it sometimes does when it has learned not to crowd. One evening I found Ethan's envelope again as I was clearing the table. The green certified sticker had curled at one corner. I pressed it flat. I clicked the kitchen light off and on and off, that domestic metronome that keeps time without asking for applause. Then I opened the window a few inches. Birds scraped their names on the air out in the maple. Somewhere a bus sighed, somewhere a man locked a storefront, somewhere a girl practiced a line of music and got it right. I stood with my hand on the sash and my other hand on the brass key in my pocket. It was warm the way metal gets warm when the body decides to keep it. I turned toward the hall, and before I left the room, I pressed the lock gently with my thumb. The click was soft, correct, final for the night, but not forever. Justice sounds like that. Quiet door, open window, work in the morning, boundaries holding, air coming in. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the playlist now showing on screen.